Welcome back to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina.
And today we're talking about a listener-requested topic. Shout out to Angela, who we interviewed in season 1. But today we're chatting about the sunk cost fallacy.
Okay, so Nicole, what is the sunk cost fallacy?
Okay, so I basically think of it as continuing on with something that you have invested time or money or work into, and it's not working out for you, but just because you've already put so much into it, you want to keep going with it. And even though you can't get that time or money or energy back, you can continue investing those things into it even though you don't want to.
So yikes, that sounds like a lot. And I feel like the word fallacy we should highlight because this fear of the sunk cost is false. Like, don't be afraid of a sunk cost. And why is that? Why do you think?
Yeah, so I think that Marina and I kind of like to think that time is never wasted because there are always lessons and things to be learned from things that we have experienced and gone through. But in the same vein, that also means that there are things in our lives that we need to realize when it's just time to let go of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One example I was thinking about, and that we were talking about, is like when it comes to physical items, like decluttering your life. And maybe you spent money on a really nice bag or just a lot of little things, but you don't want to let go of them because you've spent money. And it's like, well, you've already spent that money. It's not going to come back if you hold on to it. And if the items you're keeping aren't making you happy or providing a purpose, there's no reason. They're just taking up space. They're just taking up your energy. So let them go.
Yeah. It's like you're just holding on to something that you no longer really need or that's really giving back to you or that you enjoy. And it's really taking more from you than it's giving to you.
Mm-hmm. And we see this all the time with like physical decluttering items or in businesses or in relationships. And it has a lot to do, I think, with staying in your comfort zone of what you know. So I'll give the example that before I was working on all the things I'm working on now, I had a literary magazine. And I had it for a couple of years and I was running it myself and I had these big visions of what it could become, but just never got it where I wanted it to go. And finally, during the pandemic, I realized there were so many other ideas that I wanted to work on. I wanted to be writing a novel. I wanted to start my own coaching business. And so I finally had to realize, okay, I can't hold on to this just because I've had it for 2 years or because I've dedicated this amount of time. I've gotten everything out of it I can, and it was a good experience and a good learning. And I'm sad it didn't become everything I dreamed for it, but it's time to let it go. And that cleared up space for my brain to work on new things and energy for me to work on new things. Like you gain more when you let things go that are just holding you back.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when it comes to this, like sometimes we start to know what's not right for us or not a good fit anymore, but I think there's a lot of like societal pressure to keep continuing on the path that you're continuing on. And I think the millennial generation gets a lot of flack for that kind of because we change careers a lot or we pivot a lot. But really, I think that it's really smart to be able to let go of things and not hold on to them for extreme amounts of time just because we've put, 2 years into a company. Like, truthfully, most companies don't care about you as a person. They care about you as dollar signs.
I would say in certain aspects, millennials have the bad rep of being flighty. For example, we date with dating apps, and there's that mentality. I think a lot of people won't commit to relationships because they want to see what else is out there. So don't do that. But if you're committed to something and you're staying with it just because you've already committed to it for X amount of time, that's not going to help you grow. I feel like this happens a lot with couples who maybe started dating in high school or college or just have been dating for a long time, and the natural next step is to get engaged. And maybe they really care about each other, but they kind of fall into a marriage because that's the societally projected path, and maybe
Mhm.
then the marriage kind of dissolves over the next couple of years because it wasn't what they really wanted. It was just what they were comfortable in and what was expected of them.
Mhm.
And it's a obviously a big decision to end a long-term relationship or leave a long-term job, but just because you've been with something for a while does not mean you have to commit the rest of your life to it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think as you were saying that, it also made me think about higher education where
Mhm.
people will pursue like master's degrees or PhDs or whatever else you're pursuing.
I don't know if there's
Um
anything above a PhD. Let us know.
yeah, but I think like since these programs are so long, I think there are a lot of people who kind of through the programs, I feel like I've seen it on Twitter, Instagram, those kinds of things, where they realize that's like not really what they want to be doing anymore. But it's kind of like, well, I've put all these years into education, I only have 2 more years to go. Two of the hardest years so far, but I'm not gonna give up yet. And I don't think it's about giving up. I think it's being able to recognize like what is best for you
Mhm.
and not feeling guilty for having gone through this program, realizing that's not what you want to do, and doing something else.
Yeah, and absolutely, and along that same vein of careers, not even staying at a job for X amount of time, but if you've been working on a career in marketing or business or whatever, and you get to a point where you just realize, I don't want to do this anymore, but it's all I've been doing. I don't want it. I don't want to invalidate the time I've spent on it. You won't. That time is valuable for all that you've learned and grown, and you had to go through that to get where you are now. Like, for example, I always wanted to be in publishing. I tried so hard. I finally got into publishing, realized I hated it, and then was struck with the fear of, like, what do I do now? And realized, oh, I've learned so much about myself and about my working habits and my working preferences in all of these years. And with that knowledge, I know confidently that I'm going to do this. And that's where I am now.
Yeah, I think this whole idea of like the sunk cost kind of shows up in our lives in many ways. And I think for a lot of, I think it's typically just like a business term.
Hmm.
Um, I could be wrong, but
Yeah, I don't know
I
many
kind of
people.
see it. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know many people sitting on their couch saying, like, hey, honey, do you think our relationship is a sunk cost fallacy?
Yeah, right. Like I think, but for a lot of people, I think that it shows up in terms of like time and energy,
Hmm.
especially. And I think that as you think about making decisions in your life, I think it's really important to maybe not so much consider the amount of something you've invested in something, but what you've learned from it.
Hmm. Yeah. And that made me think about the episode we recorded that came out on the beginning of this season about failure. And I think so often people are afraid that when something they've worked on doesn't work out how they've planned for it, that it's a failure. And so this sunk cost
Mhm.
fallacy, that sunk cost feels like a failure because you've invested time or money or whatever. And really, failure is just kind of a society, again, a society term that can only be defined by you. So really, you can never fail because when you're still learning and growing from an experience, that's not failure. It's just maybe a different outcome than you planned for, which
Mhm.
isn't that like a very scientific thing? Like you can't plan for the outcome, you just like do your best to see what happens. I don't know. I was a French
You just
major.
record the results.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not your job as a scientist to influence the experiment. It's your
Yeah.
job to do the research and find out what happens.
I think if we let go of our fear of if we just get better at letting go of things, really, this will help us. But if we let go of our fear of failing, we let go of the fear of this sunk cost.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that sounds like really dead on when it comes to letting go of like past mistakes that you've made or what you feel like is a failure. Because I think we all have things where they didn't go as we wanted them to go or expected them to go or anything like that. Like, even if I look back at my 4 years of undergrad, I don't really use my psychology degree. And I don't really think that I'll use it in the future. But I don't look at it as 4 wasted years because, one, I have this whole college experience, which I can draw upon for my work now. And two, I have a degree, which I feel like in this world, just having that piece of paper means something, even
Mhm.
though, and like, I can't even tell you what classes I took in college, honestly.
I feel like you can tell me some classes you took, but they're all like funny stories that don't relate to your major, like that biology
Yeah.
class.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
But I think along that line, Nicole, so often people let past mistakes define who they are or how they'll succeed in the future. And really, if
Mhm.
you kind of acknowledge those and let them be part of your learning, they don't define you just because you failed a test or took a wrong turn or got a speeding ticket. That doesn't define you. Your actions define you for sure, but it's the actions moving forward that matter more because you can't go back. You can't live in the past. You can only operate from the present, like looking towards the future.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's almost like we need failure amnesia in a way,
Mm,
because what we, kind of go through, what we're thinking is like, oh, I'm failing at reaching this goal or whatever. I honestly think we should just forget about it. Just like erase it from your mind.
yeah, I'm
Not
I'm
necessarily
down.
erase the lessons you learned, but like, just be like, oh yeah, I did do that. I don't know. I think I suffer a little bit from failure amnesia, which kind of like makes me not dwell on things.
I love it.
Um,
I love it
I don't
because
know. Maybe that's a personal problem because I think I also have shopping amnesia, where I'll buy things and I forget what I bought, and it shows up to my house, and I'm just like, "Thank you so much, past self.
yeah,
I forgot all about it."
I do try to live my life in a way that future me is grateful for past me.
Mhm.
So there is that. But back to the point of just the idea of the sunk cost meaning you can never let go of something because you've already invested time in it. That's the true falsehood. You can't worry
Mhm.
about what you've already spent because it's gone. And if it's money, whatever happens after this life, you can't take it with you. So you might as well acknowledge it and move on. um, that's what I tell myself when I want to really, really want to buy something. I'm just like, well, I can make more money and I can't take this money with me. And you never know what's going to happen, which is maybe morbid. But the point is, you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid to let go of something just because you've worked to earn it or worked to have it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's about sums it up, really.
Hmm. Well, we'd love to hear what you guys think. So email us, DM us, and if you are feeling it, which we hope you are, leave us a rating and a review. This has been another episode of the Gen 20 podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.